Storytime about how I kissed every teacher I ever had a crush on and never got caught. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, was sending me on Instagram. Growing up, I was a spoiled brat. My parents gave me literally everything I ever wanted. For my 15th birthday, I told my dad that if he didn't get me a BMW, I would run away. So on my 15th birthday, I got the BMW. My parents never said no to anything. One time I told my parents I wanted to have a party at my house and they said no. I threw a tantrum and started to cry. My dad pulled out his credit card and told me to stop crying and I could go buy whatever I wanted. And I pretty much maxed out his card. He did punish me for a month, but all he really took away was the TV. As you can see, I was completely entitled. And yes, looking back, I would love to punch myself. I was a complete brat. When I got into high school, I went boy crazy. My parents told me they did not want me having boyfriends, but of course, I put up a fight. And they had no choice but to let me have boyfriends. I would bring them over to my house all the time, and I would always take them up to my room and lock our door. My dad told me one time to open the door, and I wouldn't, so he just left me. Eventually, I got bored with all my boyfriends, so I would just break up with them. But one day, this new high school teacher comes in. We made eye contact for about 5 seconds. I was obsessed. Follow for part 2. Story time about how I kissed every high school teacher I had a crush on and never got caught. Disclaimer, it's not my story time, it's sending me on Instagram. After we locked eyes for about 5 seconds, he looked away. But I was totally obsessed. He was like the most perfect guy I'd ever seen. And the first thing I did was go to his classroom. I knocked on the door and as soon as he saw me, he smiled and said, "Come in." We talked for about 2 minutes and he told me that he was only substituting. So I knew I needed to make my move really quick. Fortunately, I was not taking the classes that he was substituting, but I had to find a way to get close to him. So I started watching everything that he did. My school had a big outdoors area and there were lots of tables around. And I noticed that he would go behind the library to eat his lunch. So I started going behind the library to eat my lunch. I decided to get there before he did so that it would be a coincidence. As soon as he saw me, he waved, but he sat at another table. So I grabbed my food and went over to sit with him. That's when I started asking him if he had a girlfriend. He got super red. This guy was blushing. And I knew right away that he probably had a crush on me. He basically didn't give me a yes or a no about the girlfriend, but I didn't care. But I didn't want to make my move right away. He said for the next 3 days I sat with him at lunch. Finally, he asked me, "Don't you have friends?" And I said yes, but they're all annoying. That's when I leaned in for the kiss. And no, he did not pull away. The kiss lasted for about 10 seconds. As soon as we pull away, he starts looking around to see if anybody saw. And he told me that I need to find someone my own age. By the way, he was 24, I was 17. Next day at lunch, I asked him if he wanted to go to my car. And we ended up kissing 3 more times that day. That's when he asked me for my phone number. Follow for part 3. Story time about how I kissed every teacher I had a crush on and never got caught. Disclaimer, this is not my story time, it's sending me on Instagram. As we were sitting in my car kissing, he asked me for my number. Gave him my number and that's when he said that because he's only a substitute teacher, we could still hang out outside of school. And I said, of course. The following week, he was gone because the teacher he was substituting for was back. No, he never called me. A few months later, we had another substitute teacher. And this guy was also really good looking. He wasn't as good looking as the first one, but good enough to distract me. This time I got lucky. He was substituting for drama. And I took drama twice a week. So I knew that I was going to be seeing him often. First thing I needed to do was get him to notice me. But this took a lot longer than the other guy. For the first week, I would just try to talk to him, but he was not having it. He would literally tell me to just go sit down. But I couldn't give up. One day after class, I decided to stay late. I knew that he would be staying late as well, so I knew that was my in. I went up to him and asked him if I could help him out. He said yes, and he basically told me to put away some of the costuming. As we were doing that, I just started talking to him. And I swear to God, for a minute, this guy forgot that I was a student. We started talking about everything. By the end of the conversation, he told me that I was really mature and that I made him laugh. So the next day I stayed after school with him again. This time we were backstage organizing props and we were completely isolated. So when I told him that I thought he was really cute and that he was probably a good kisser. Then he walks up to me and kisses me. Oh my God, the butterflies in my stomach. When he stopped kissing me, I pulled him in and kissed him again. That's when he came to his senses and told me that I needed to go home. So I did. And the following week he was not there. Apparently he had a family emergency, but we know it's a lie. Looking back on my behavior, I'm totally horrified. Where did I get the courage to do all the things I did? I never spoke to any of them again, but I did see one of them on Instagram. I did not follow him. He's now got a big beer belly. Ew. Definitely don't do what I did. If I could go back, I would not have done it. Bye.
Am I the asshole for calling my fiance delusional for wanting me to let his mom pick my makeup/look for the wedding? My fiance and I are getting married. He comes from a conservative family and his mom has been up in the wedding planning, posing as supervisor to oversee and to, quote, catch and eliminate anything that could be seen as offensive. After the wedding dress fiasco, I was told to get a dress that wasn't showing too much skin. Next came the makeup issue. I showed my fiance some looks I wanted to choose from, and he gasped and said his mom would have a stroke if she saw these. I, in frustration, asked, what should I do? And next thing I knew, but did not expect, was for her to send me looks of models with almost no makeup or very light makeup. No eyeshadow, no glowy lipstick, just ... plain look. I refused to choose from any of her suggestions and we had an argument. My fiance came home and argued about how I'm planning on humiliating him and his family at the wedding. by wanting to look like a, quote, clown and make a joke out of both of us. I snapped and called him delusional to think I'll let his mom get a say in what makeup I should wear since it's my face. He said there's no such thing as mine and yours in marriage, and that I'm clearly too immature for it. He has been avoiding me while saying, quote, you know why I'm avoiding you. And his mom sent a text about how she has my best interests at heart.
Oh.
Am I the asshole?
Are you kidding me?
Am I wrong for getting my sister-in-law arrested on her wedding day? I, 24 female, and my husband, 24 male, have 3 dogs, 2 corgis and a Pomeranian. I rescued them from a puppy mill that was shut down about 6 months ago. They were all in horrible condition and had numerous medical issues. They are very friendly dogs and have adjusted to their new lives extremely well. My now sister-in-law, Amy, has met them a few times before the events occurred. Amy said she wanted them to be her ring bearer and flower girls for her wedding. Amy and I don't get along at all. She has said numerous hurtful and cruel things about me to my family and really anybody who will listen. I am not even invited to the wedding as I would ruin the vibe. What? How are you not invited to your own sister-in-law's wedding, but she wants your dogs? I told her she would not be using my dogs for her wedding for multiple reasons, including me not being invited, and they were all having surgery a few days prior. They were all getting spayed as well as dental work. She wasn't happy about being told no. Now, at the event that happened a couple of weeks ago, all of my dogs had their surgeries on a Thursday. The wedding was on a Sunday in the evening. My husband and I left the house to go run some errands Sunday morning, and the dogs were home asleep. I got a notification on my phone about motion at my back door. I check it, and it is Amy opening the door and walking into the house. Oh my god, please tell me she don't steal your dogs. Oh my god. I started panicking and telling my husband we need to leave now and go back to the house. I show him the video and he agrees. I start calling my brother and demanding for him to get his wife out of my house, and if she leaves with my dogs, I will call the police. He hung up on me. I got home and all of my dogs are gone and their cones were left in their crates. I called the police for theft and breaking and entering. The police arrived and I showed them the video of her getting into our house and leaving with the dogs. I told them where her venue was as I had seen a copy of the invitation. The police made it to the venue and were able to locate all of my dogs. One had opened her stitches and was bleeding from the wound. My husband rushed her to the emergency vet to get the stitches closed. Amy was arrested in the middle of getting ready for her wedding and has been charged with a Class 1 felony and a few misdemeanors. Now everybody is saying I ruined the wedding and I overreacted to the entire situation. I'm also being told that I need to pay them back for the wedding since it never happened. I'm refusing to pay anybody back as well as drop the charges.
I got essayed by my neighbor. This is not my story. When I was in elementary school, one day I got locked out of my house for the first time. My parents weren't home, so I went to my neighbor's house. They were this sweet old couple and they gladly took me in until my parents got home. They gave me a Diet Pepsi and taught me a card game. They were so sweet. They said that they had a granddaughter around my age and introduced me to her. We became best friends immediately. I'll call her Jane. So me and Jane became best friends. We did everything together. She always spent the night at my house, and when she did, nothing was weird at all. I need to mention that she was older than me and her body and hormones were more mature than mine. I was a very protected kid and knew nothing about sex at this time. During about a year of us constantly hanging out, she invited me to spend the night at her house. At first, everything was normal. Go to part 2. Guy is saved by my neighbor, part 2. This is not my story. I went to go sleep at my best friend's house and everything was normal. We were doing things that 11 and 13-year-olds would do. We talked about boys, we painted our nails, etc. And then we had to go to bed, which was no problem because we always slept together at my house. This night she asked me if I've ever been kissed, and I told her no. She said if I wanted to know what it felt like to be kissed, and I said yes. My best friend kissed me. I immediately felt uncomfortable and I pulled away from her. We laid in silence for a while, and then she started touching my leg, and then she went down to my private part. I felt so guilty because it felt good. I didn't understand what was happening. I was 11. She kept touching me and then she ended up being on top of me. Go to part 3. I got essayed by my neighbor, part 3. This is not my story. My best friend had kissed me and it felt good. I had a feeling this was wrong though. Before I knew it, she was on top of me. She was grinding herself against me. I was terrified because it felt nice, but I didn't understand what she was doing. I didn't like it since I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what to do in that moment. I just let it happen. I felt all of her genitals on me. She wanted me to undress, but I said no. This would happen every time I would sleep over at her house. It still haunts me to know that I was essayed and that I felt good. I don't know if I even got essayed at this point. I wouldn't invite her to sleep over at my house anymore. My parents got suspicious and asked me if something was happening or if something happened at her house. And I told them no. They didn't believe me. I wasn't a good liar too. I never told anyone.
Am I the asshole for telling my parents and brother that if they wanted his ex removed from my wedding pictures, they had to pay for it?
Oh.
My brother goes through women like I go through socks. I gave him a +1 for my wedding 2 years ago. He brought his girlfriend at the time. When we were doing the family pictures, he wanted his girlfriend in the pictures. I said we could do some with her and some without. He got mad that I allowed my sister to have her fiance in all the pictures, and my other brother was allowed to have his boyfriend of 5 years, but that I had the audacity to exclude his girlfriend of the week. My parents said that they didn't want any fighting and to just include her. They were paying for everything, so I said fine. She isn't in all of our pictures, just the ones with our family and both families. Now, my brother is engaged, and we had the family over last weekend. His fiance saw our wedding picture on the wall and got into a fight with my brother. He never told her that he had been in a serious relationship with her nemesis. He tried explaining that they only dated a very short time. She called bullshit because she was included in the family pictures. She asked to see our wedding album. Sure enough, the girl was in multiple pictures with the family and the in-laws. My brother finally calmed her down, but has asked me to take down the picture or have his ex removed. I said that it was expensive, so if he would pay for it, then maybe. He tried complaining to our parents. They said that I was being childish. I reminded them that they were the ones who insisted I give in to him. I said that they were welcome to pay for the editing. They said I was a jerk and that they already paid for the pictures once. Am I the asshole?
Absolutely not.
These people are unhinged.
The family definitely did the right thing. They know what it's like, so they got pictures with his
Yeah, they did the right
+1.
thing on the occasion.
Yeah, they definitely did the right thing. They got pictures with his +1 and without. So yeah, I don't know what the issue is here.
My 33 female, husband 35 male, played a fart prank on me at our wedding, leaving me absolutely humiliated. How do I recover from this? I knew it was coming. Yes, I have been hounding him to propose to me after 6 years of being together, and it looked like we were finally going to take a step forward in our relationship. Until our wedding day, and I haven't since stopped being upset and crying my eyes out. The day I was supposed to feel my most beautiful, I may have looked like a disgusting pig. After the wedding vows were done, we were escorted at the stage where there was a love seat. My husband asked me to sit first, and as I did, I heard a ripping sound of a fart, followed by howls of laughter with him teasing me. It was a prank. There was a fart machine that was loud enough for everyone to hear it. At first, I was in shock, then in denial, and was completely stunned with tears that I was trying to hold back. The event ended soon after with reception scheduled for tomorrow night. I invested so much emotionally and materially into making our wedding perfect, as my husband decided to give me lead on things as he's not a great planner. The perfect dress, the perfect makeup, venue, flowers, etc. Only for me to be mocked at and humiliated. I am currently at my own apartment and have refused to speak to my husband and contemplating an annulment. He says it was just a prank and has been begging me to come back. He also said he would make it up to me and help me get over it. In the slight chance it is, can someone convince me otherwise? We have way too much history together. If you have to beg someone to propose to you, that person is probably not the one you should be marrying.
Am I the arsehole for humiliating my mother-in-law at a family meal? Story time. So I've never really got on with my mother-in-law for the entirety of mine and Steve's relationship. Over the years, she has just said a lot of very, very childish and cruel things about me. Recently, I've just become exhausted with this woman. We've recently moved towns, I've got a different job, we've recently got married, and we're also looking to buy a house. So my mind is being taken up by lots of different things. So just for some context on what this woman is like, in the past few years, she has taken to ignoring me, both messages and in social settings. And then when we are in social settings, she will just talk right over the top of me. This is giving Phantom of the Opera. She just really enjoys pretending that I don't exist. So as a result, I've just mentally checked out the situation. And through ruining her relationship with me, she's also ruined her relationship with my partner as well. Now, don't get me wrong, I support whatever relationship my Steve wants to have with his mum, but I'm done trying to be this woman's friend. So recently we were at a dinner party and my mother-in-law starts asking when we're gonna have kids. And when I say asking, I kind of mean more like interrogating. She's going over and over again about how she can't wait to have grandchildren and she's going to be such a great grandma. And this is something that she has not shut up about lately. Anytime we see her, it's like, when are the grandchildren coming? When are you going to get pregnant? La la la. And it's getting on my nerves, quite frankly. Now, don't get me wrong, my partner has asked her to stop several times, but she just keeps going. At a certain point in the night, I'd had a little bit too much wine and it really started to get to my head. And I snapped. That's the best word for it. I turned to this woman. I was like, what do you want to know about our private life, Sandra? I'll tell you. Do you want to know what kind of birth control I'm on? Do you want to know what time of day we're doing it? Do you want to know where we're doing it? I was like, do you want me to let you know what my ovulation tests are saying? I list them all. I went into using inappropriate language, crude language. I was being vulgar. I was giving detail. At one point, I even said to her, Sandra, have you actually got any tips for me? Or actually, Sandra, why don't you just come and watch? Make sure we're doing it right. Then she started crying and screaming at me and asking Steve why she's letting her partner speak to her like that. Well, me and Steve got up after this and left because there ain't no way I was sitting and divulging that conversation any longer. The next day, his auntie's call and they're like, listen, she was a little bit out of order, took it a bit too far. We think she should apologise. No, I don't think I should, but you please let me know if you think I should. I also just wanted to add that I'm actually infertile and I know this, but I would never ever tell her that to give her that as a weapon that she could use against me. So what do you think? Am I the arsehole?
Would I be in the wrong for suing my child? My husband and I have 3 children and our deal with them is that we will fund their schooling so that they don't have to take out loans and have loads of interest. We also said we would never ask for this back from them. One of our children, Becky, dropped out of school when she was in the 3rd semester at college. After this, she just bounced around for a while doing little jobs until she came back when she was 23 and asked if we would fund her to go to college again. At this point, we were kind of skeptical because we had already paid out so much money, and since she had made such bad decisions, we told her that we would lend her the money, but she would need to pay this back to us. We wouldn't put any interest on it. We made her agree to this in writing, which she did. Anyway, this is exactly what she did, and she's done really well. She's now got a really good job making decent money, and we've asked for the money back. We have actually been asking for this money back for years, and we kind of just came to an agreement that this money would come out of her inheritance, which was fine. However, unfortunately, since then, my husband and I are really not doing very well, and he is in need of medical help and our bills are just stacking up. She is completely aware about this and we've asked her so many times because the amount we owe her is about 100k, and honestly this would just really help us out and keep us afloat. We've even said that just doing some sort of payment plan like £1,000 a month will really help us out and pay off her debt to us at the same time. The last conversation that we had with her, she said flat out that she is not paying it back. She said that she's recently bought a home and she needs to save up and that we should be understanding of this. The relationship has really broken down over this, and I've actually gone to see a lawyer who's advised that I'd have a really good chance of winning a case against her. So would I be in the wrong if I sued her for this?
My fiance faked being rich just to get me to marry him. Should I leave him? My fiance has lied to me literally over hundreds of times. It all started when he and I met 3 years ago. I was turning 32 and going through a divorce, so I had no intention of ever getting into another relationship, at least not for a long time. Come from a really wealthy family, so I inherited a lot of money when I turned 18. That never stopped me from getting a job. I started working in fashion and it was amazing. Eventually I became a stylist and had my own business. My relationship with my then husband was not going well, so we decided to get a divorce. But my ex-husband and I never really had hard feelings and we stayed friends. At the time I was living in New York and had tons of friends. Every single weekend I was going out. And since I was single, I literally had nobody to answer to. My friends and I would go to exclusive clubs and restaurants every single night. This is how I met my compulsive liar of a fiance. He was friends with somebody in my friend group. Now everyone in my group was pretty wealthy. We all drove expensive cars, owned our own businesses, and we worked really hard. One of my friends introduced me to him, and within the first 5 minutes of our conversation, he told me that he was a Calvin Klein model. Of course I believed it because he was really attractive. And he basically asked me how much money I made a year. And I was honest with him. I earned around 300 grand a year. That's when he told me that he was a millionaire. Follow for part 2. My fiance faked being rich just so that I could marry him. Should I leave him? The very first night I met him, he told me that he was a millionaire and that he was a Calvin Klein model. Of course I believed him because he was just that attractive. Then he asked me how much I earned per year and I told him the truth, $300,000. Look on his face was of utter shock. Told me he almost couldn't believe that I would make that much money. And he started talking about how he's a millionaire and he models and he travels around the world. I was actually impressed. Later that night, I asked the friend that introduced me to him if it was all true. She said, yeah, he posts about it on his Instagram, so I think so. Went to the bathroom and started looking him up on Instagram. And it looked like it was true. He did model for Calvin Klein and was modeling around the world. But honestly, from his Instagram, I really couldn't gather if he was a millionaire or not. It's not like he was posting pictures of him in a Maybach or anything. That very same night, he asked me if he could come to my apartment and I said no. The very next day, he asked me out on a date and I said yes. Ended up going to a really fancy restaurant and he paid for the bill. When the bill came, it was over $1,000. Ordered so many things off the menu. What I really didn't like was that he barely touched any of the food. The rest of the week, he invited me to all these different restaurants. On our second week, I asked him if he wanted to come to my place to have dinner, which he did. And the look of his face when he showed up to my apartment was like shocked. Finally, he asked me how much my rent was. That's when I told him I didn't pay rent. I owned the apartment. That's when he said, yeah, I own my own place too. And then I asked him, why haven't you invited me to your apartment? He said that he was getting renovations done. Exactly a month into us dating, he asked me to be his girlfriend and I said yes. Oh, I had not been to his apartment at this point. He had been paying for everything. Follow for part 3. Fiance faked being rich to get me to marry him. Should I leave him? At this point, he had been paying for everything. Every single time we went to dinner, any date we ever went on, he paid for everything. About 2 months into our relationship, I asked him again if I could go to his apartment. That's when he made up another excuse. Told me the contractor that was doing all the renovations in his apartment basically bailed on him. So his apartment was basically in shambles. I told him that I actually knew a contractor who could help him out. And he told me not to worry about it, that he had it covered. The very next week, he had prepared an elaborate proposal. He took me to Central Park where he had a band. He gave me a 3-carat pink diamond ring. Of course, I said yes. I was so happy. Never thought I'd find love again. After the engagement, I told him that we should just move in together. That's when he said, perfect. I can move into your place next week. I was like, what? He said that he actually wanted to sell his apartment. So I said yes. And the very next week, he moved into my place. When he showed up to my apartment, he literally only had 2 suitcases. And most of the clothes were kind of old and raggedy. I asked him where all of his stuff was, and he said, this is it. That's when I started getting really suspicious. I called his modeling agency, and they told me that they hadn't worked with him in 3 years. So apparently, he wasn't really a model. Confronted him and asked him what was going on. He confessed that he hadn't modeled in years. That when he met me, he was so impressed that he needed to tell me something to impress me. Told me he had a lot of credit card debt and that he actually couldn't afford the lifestyle he was showing me. Then he also told me that he never even had an apartment. He was sleeping on his friend's couch. Told him I couldn't marry him or trust him, and that he was probably only after my money. He swears that he loves me. No, he hasn't asked me for money and he's offering to actually pay for rent. My friends and family think I should leave him, but I love him and I'm so attracted to him. What should I do?
Am I the asshole for refusing to sleep on the couch? I, 32 male, and my wife, 31 female, got into a heated argument after her friend accused me of hitting on her. The other day on my way home from work, I came across a friend of my wife's and she looked like she was carrying heavy stuff. So I asked if she wanted a ride home. At first she declined, but as I was leaving, she changed her mind and got into the car. We had a nice chat while driving and all was well. I even told my wife about it when I got home. Yesterday, I was confronted by my wife because I allegedly hit on her friend. I obviously denied it and told her the version of events. But apparently I was persistent with said friend when offering her the ride. I only asked twice and the second time was me asking if she was sure. My wife insisted that her friend isn't the type to just lie about something like this. Naturally, I asked her why she trusted her friend more than me. And then she told me about how her sister's husband cheated with a friend. I was angry at how I was being compared to someone else based on mere accusation, and we ended up arguing. Then, when we were just about to sleep, she told me to sleep on the couch because she didn't feel comfortable with me. I argued that I wasn't going to be punished for something I didn't do, and after quite a back and forth, I eventually let her have the room and slept in the other one instead. I woke up in the morning to yet another confrontation about why I didn't sleep on the couch. I was obviously baffled and asked why I should sleep on the couch when we had another room. According to her, if one spouse tells the other that they should sleep on the couch, then they should do as asked to show that they are sorry. I pointed out that it was ridiculous, especially when you add the fact that I didn't even do anything. Things are now all tense because I gave someone a lift. Am I the asshole? Update. Well, not too long after the arguments, we eventually confronted said friend, only for another argument to break out, this time between my wife and her friend. And I got even more than I bargained for. Basically, the friend denied ever saying I was hitting on her and said my wife took it out of context and misheard her. My wife argued back saying the opposite. That said friend said I was making moves on her and flirting. According to her friend, her words were along the lines of, your husband was very nice to me. Had it been any other person, I would think they're flirting. Honestly, there was a lot of back and forth about what was actually said, but in the end, it was established that I had in fact not flirted with her friend. However, because of the argument, things were heated and things were said. What got to me is when her friend revealed to me that my wife was very insecure and had been keeping tabs on me, checking my phone every now and then without my knowledge, and searching my car for laundry or feminine hygiene products products and scents that didn't belong to her every so often. Apparently, she's been confiding all of this to her friends and at some point even considered having one of her friends flirt with me to see what I would do. Needless to say, I am speechless and very disappointed. It's only now that I realize there wasn't any trust in this marriage and I'm only going to continue suffering because of her sister's failed marriage. She's tried apologizing and denying to the point where I'm confused what she's trying to apologize for and what she's denying. I was tempted to give her the same treatment she gave me based on an accusation, but to be honest, I really don't have the energy. As of now, I've asked for some space to contemplate this entire marriage.
Am I the asshole for moving my roommate's insulin out of the way? So my 27 male roommate, 23 female, is a type 1 diabetic and she stores her insulin in the refrigerator. I decided to throw a huge surprise party for my best friend, 28 male, this weekend. I knew the party would be a massive hit and I was super excited to see the look on his face when he walked in. To make the party unforgettable, I ordered a giant custom-made ice cream cake, which needed to be kept in the fridge. When I got home with the cake, I realized there wasn't enough room in the fridge for it. My roommate wasn't home, so I couldn't ask her if I could rearrange her stuff. I saw her insulin, and I thought it would be no big deal if I took it out for a few hours while the party was going on, just to make room for the cake. I mean, I didn't think she would need it during the party, since she wasn't even invited. Anyways, my roommate came home unexpectedly during the party, noticed her insulin was missing, and absolutely freaked out. She started yelling at me in front of all of my guests, making a scene and totally ruining the vibe. She went on this whole rant about how this type of insulin spoils quickly at room temperature or something, and she made a big scene of throwing it all out. I looked it up, and I'm 90% sure she's exaggerating. She had to take some emergency insulin she keeps in her room and left the party visibly upset. Now, everyone's telling me I'm the asshole for taking her insulin out of the fridge, even though it was only for a few hours. I think she overreacted, and it's not my fault she came home early. Am I the asshole?
Am I in the wrong for calling my nephew a sad beige baby? I have two kids aged 2 and 6 and my sister has one baby who is 1.5 years old. She is a mummy blogger and embraces the white beige aesthetic. This preference actually reflects in every aspect of her life. Her whole apartment is white and beige, even seasonal decorations like Christmas are white and beige as well, and she's very intense about this. It brings her joy and it's not my preference, but I've never said anything about it. Anyway, a few months ago I stumbled upon a TikTok channel that basically makes reference and kind of makes fun of this beige aesthetic and says sad beige baby for babies that are always dressed in kind of white, neutrals or beige. I personally find this really funny as I can relate to it. It wouldn't be my choice for my kids and it's just become kind of a small joke in our household. During a recent visit to her apartment, I was playing with my nephew and he kind of made this really cute little sad face, and just as a joke without thinking, I called him a sad beige baby. My sister became absolutely furious with me and told me that it's none of my business how she chooses to decorate and have the aesthetic of her life. Genuinely didn't mean to insult her, but she was really upset about this, and my husband tried to kind of diffuse the situation but ended up saying that she is just a bit too serious about her aesthetic and could just be a little bit more relaxed about this. Needless to say, this didn't help the situation and she actually took her red wine and threw it across her tablecloth and basically was like, "Are you happy now?" Which obviously we wasn't. She asked us to leave and has since inundated me with messages of other mummy bloggers who use the same aesthetic as her and basically saying that I'm completely in the wrong for this. I am going to apologise for making her uncomfortable, but I do still have the view that she is taking this aesthetic too seriously and making my nephew a sad beige baby. Am I in the wrong for this?
Am I the asshole for tossing the change back to a cashier who was being rude to me? This is not my story, it was sent to me on my email. It was my sister's 13th birthday, so I decided to take her to the mall. This mall is pretty fancy. I took my little sister to all the shopping spots she wanted to go. Instead of hitting Starbucks, we decided to go to a little small fruit water business. So we get in line and there was a lot of white people standing in front of us. The lady seemed really nice, talking to all of the couples that were in front of us. And this lady was Hispanic. I don't know if she was Mexican, but she was just Hispanic. Mind you, me and my sister are mixed with Mexican and Cuban. So we get to her and we notice that her attitude drops. She instantly is being mean and she's not even listening to our order. Me and my little sister were just looking at each other, weirded out and confused. I had cash on me, so I gave her the cash, and once I got my change, she actually threw the quarters to my little sister. So I threw that shit back at her, and my the